welcome to Sound Music Business. I'm Anthea Palmer, and this is episode 4 of the Face the Music series. This episode is all about getting your hands on some money to boost your career through grants. Now, a lot of musicians are put off by the application process. It can be fairly arduous. There's a lot of questions to answer, a lot of support documentation to get, and sometimes the terminology can be difficult to understand for people, and often they will just have a look at the document and not bother to apply. So here's my key information and tips from the session I went to on successfully obtaining grants. There was a fantastic panel of people putting forward this information. I think it'll be useful. Okay, time frame. So they recommend that you submit your application at least a month before the closing date. And that's because that gives you a bit of buffer if anything goes wrong in gathering your information. And it also means that if you submit it a month before the closing date and they do need any clarification or extra documentation, there is time for them to request it and for you to provide it. So don't wait till closing day. That's not the best idea. Really aim for minimum a month before the closing date. Budget is where a lot of applications fall down. So make sure that your budget is accurate and realistic. Don't make stuff up or submit dodgy quotations, because these people are experts and they can hunt that stuff out pretty quickly. So make sure it is accurate and it's realistic. Have all your little ducks in a row. So make sure that if it's an overseas touring grant that you're going for, make sure your passport's up to date, because that takes time if it's not. Make sure you've got the necessary insurance, or you can get or afford the necessary insurance and have that at least semi-organised. And visas, if you're going overseas, check out how much the visa is going to cost in application and how long it takes, because you might have to apply for the visa before you apply for the grant. So you've got to be on top of that stuff. And then within the application, let them know that you're organised as far as that goes, because that'll carry a lot of weight. Now, should you use a grant writer? Well, there are pros and cons. What they are very good at is pulling the information together in time. So particularly if you're applying late, it might be worth having a grant writer to make sure you get the application in before closing. If you really just find the documentation too overwhelming and you do have a lot of difficulty writing something like this, then of course you have the option of a grant writer. The cons are that they're not going to tell your story with the same amount of passion that you are, and it's not going to have the personality that you would give it. And that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a sterile document. They want to feel the passion. And the other thing is that often, because these grant writers do a lot of grant writing, they are known to cut and paste a lot. And sometimes that doesn't read well and it can be detrimental. So it is an option. Most of the panel said that it is absolutely not necessary to have a grant writer. In fact, they all said that. So don't be frightened to just work on it yourself. Make sure you talk about the big picture. What they want to know is that getting this grant is going to take you from here to here. They want to know how this is going to help you, why it's going to help you. So make sure you tell them that story, not just what you've done up to now, but what you think this grant will really do for your career. Now, the time to apply for a grant is when the recording or the touring is already in your plan. So ask yourself, would I still go on tour and will I still record this album if I don't get the grant? And if the answer's no, I wouldn't apply. The grant money should really complement what you're already going to do. So try to look at it that way. Be ready to record, be ready to tour. Know that that's what you've got to do next. Be ready for it. And that's when you get involved in the grant application process. You'll need to have a thick skin. They say that if you put in multiple applications, you're likely to be successful 1 in 4 times. And that overall, 10 to 12% of all grant applications are successful. So you do need to have a thick skin. Don't think that you're going to put an application in and first time, bang, get it. You may, but don't count your chickens. Also, Don't give up after you've been rejected once, because many artists have applied many times and you don't always get it the first time. You need to have a thick skin. Now, I haven't written a music or an arts grant application, but when I was in business, in my last lifetime, I used to write a lot of tenders and win a lot of government tenders. And the documents and the process is very similar. And for me, that was a great learning experience because I very quickly got to understand what my strengths and weaknesses were in the business. And I also understood what I had to plan for to make sure that I could get the big jobs. And it's a very similar process. Trust me, if you sit down and gather the information and write the application for the grant, you will learn a lot about what you need to do and where you need to go. 1. Firstly, check the criteria and the eligibility for the grant. Make sure before you bother doing anything else or get excited about it that you're actually eligible. Number 2, grab a highlighter, read through the document and highlight any words or phrases that you don't understand, and then contact the relevant body and ask them for clarification. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you. Don't be intimidated. They want you to be successful. They have a budget of money to give away. They want you to succeed. Make sure that you're not afraid to ask for help and get clarification early. Number 3 is to check all the format criteria. So if there's a music submission, media submission, check what format it needs to be submitted in and make sure that you can apply to that. Now, I would recommend a lot of it will be you setting up a Dropbox and sending them a link to the Dropbox and having all your media in there. But please always check how they want to receive the information. Again, make sure you can provide your information in the correct format. Collect source documents. So look for which source documents have to be submitted and work on getting those documents. The reason being, some of them you'll have to put requests in for information. Start on that early. Make sure you've got enough time to gather all those source documents. And lastly, tip number 5, right now, start collecting written references from people that you know in the music industry, particularly people that have shown some interest in your music. Just like if you're writing a CV for a job application, you need references from the industry saying that they've worked with you, that you're reliable, giving you a good rap. That documentation is really important and you can start gathering that information right now. So that was episode 4 of the Face the Music series. The series I think has been great, lots of good information. You can listen to me give you a brief instead of sitting through, hour-plus panels. I hope it's been useful for you and please look out for the next episode. I'm Anthea Palmer and this is Sound Music Business. Onward and upward.